She is lying on the couch at 28 weeks, evening light fading through the blinds, the day quietly winding down around her. Her partner walks through the door. He sets his bag down. He says hello. And inside her belly, in the space of a single second, there is a flurry of motion she has never felt before, not the steady rolling kicks she has grown used to over the last few weeks. Not the lazy stretches that happen when she eats or rolls onto her side. This is something else. Sudden, sharp, deliberate. And it happens at the exact moment her partner's voice fills the room. She lays a hand on her stomach. The baby moves again, almost as if responding to a question she did not ask. She has been talking to her baby for months, singing in the shower, reading aloud at night, whispering against the curve of her belly in those quiet moments before sleep. And yet now, the moment her partner spoke from across the room, her baby has reacted with a force that feels almost like recognition, almost like joy. She thinks, half embarrassed at how sentimental it sounds, that the baby is reacting to Dad's voice. But why like this? Why so much? Her own voice has been the soundtrack of every waking hour for half a year. Why does her partner's voice, much rarer in the daily rhythm of her body, produce a reaction her own voice never has? She does what every pregnant woman eventually does. She opens her phone and types a version of the question into the search bar. Why does my baby move more for Dad's voice? The answer she gets is almost always the same. A short paragraph on a hospital website, a reassuring line in a pregnancy app. Babies can hear in the womb starting around 18 weeks. They respond to voices they hear often. It is normal. It is sweet. Move on. The answer is technically true. The answer also fails to explain anything that matters about what is actually happening inside her body in those few seconds when her partner's voice arrives and her baby answers from the other side of her own skin. But here is what nobody tells her. Her baby is not just hearing Dad's voice. Her baby is hearing it in a fundamentally different way than they hear hers. And once you understand the physics of how sound actually reaches a fetal ear, the entire moment changes meaning. The science behind that quiet evening flurry of kicks is far more profound than any pregnancy app will ever explain. And it points to something almost philosophical about how a human being begins to learn the shape of the world. For most of medical history, the womb was assumed to be a muffled and indistinct sonic environment. Doctors imagined the fetus suspended in something like a pillow fort, sounds muted, voices garbled, the outside world reduced to a hum. It was a comforting image, and an entirely incorrect one. The very first researchers who tried to record what a fetus actually hears, by placing miniature microphones inside the amniotic sac during late pregnancy in the 1970s and 80s, were genuinely surprised at what they discovered. The womb is not a quiet place. It is full of sound. The mother's heartbeat thrums constantly in the background, a low percussion the baby has never lived without. The whoosh of her blood moving through the placenta is a steady tide. The gurgle of her digestion plays at random intervals. The deep murmur of her own voice resonates through her bones whenever she speaks. And layered on top of that constant internal soundtrack, the voices of the world outside. But not all voices arrive equally. Some are filtered out almost entirely. Others slip through with surprising clarity. And which voices belong to which category turns out to be the key to one of the most extraordinary things a fetal brain does. In 2003, Dr. Barbara Kiselewski and her team at Queen's University in Ontario published a study that quietly rewrote our understanding of fetal hearing. They worked with mothers in late pregnancy. They played recordings of different voices near the mother's abdomens, the mother's own voice, a female stranger's voice, the father's voice, and they recorded fetal heart rate responses to each. What they found was that the fetus could distinguish all three, not just respond to them as sound, but identify them as different. The mother's voice produced a calm, familiar pattern, the heart rate slowing slightly as if settling into a known signal. The stranger's voice produced a sharp startle that quickly faded. The father's voice produced something else entirely. A sustained, focused, attentive heart rate change that researchers had never seen before in fetal studies. It was not startle. It was not calm. It was something the team described as recognition. The fetal brain knew Dad, And the fetal brain tracked Dad's voice with a kind of focused listening that the team described as different in character from every other auditory response in the study. Subsequent work by other research groups in other countries confirmed it, again and again, with different protocols and different sample sizes. The fetal nervous system is not simply hearing the world, it is sorting the world. And Dad's voice occupies a special category in that sorting system, distinct from both mother and stranger, distinct enough that the brain treats it as its own kind of signal entirely. And it does not stop at recognition in the womb. Decades earlier, in 1980, Dr. Anthony DeCasper and Dr. William Pfeiffer at the University of North Carolina ran what is now one of the most cited studies in developmental psychology. They tested newborn babies, sometimes only hours after birth, by giving them specially designed pacifiers that recorded the baby's sucking pattern. The newborns could change the rhythm of their sucking to play either a recording of their mother's voice or a recording of a stranger's voice. Almost without exception, the newborns adjusted their suck to hear their mother. They preferred her. They knew her. They had been listening for 9 months and they could pick her out of a lineup within hours of birth. Subsequent versions of the same experiment, run by Dr. Peter Hepper at Queen's University Belfast and other researchers, showed that newborns also recognize and prefer their father's voice and the melodies and stories they heard repeatedly in the 3rd trimester. Babies born to mothers who had read the same story aloud during late pregnancy preferred recordings of that story to recordings of similar but novel stories within days of birth. The fetal brain is not just hearing the world. The fetal brain is taking notes. By the time the baby is born, they already have a mental map of the most important voices in their life, and they have been studying for months. The hello her partner gets the moment the baby is born is not a first meeting. It is a long-awaited reunion with someone the baby has been listening to from the inside of another body. The reason lies in the physics of how sound travels through the human body, and this is where the story becomes almost beautiful. When mom speaks, the sound of her voice reaches her baby through 2 paths simultaneously. The external path, the sound waves leaving her mouth and traveling through the air and back into her abdomen. And the internal path, the vibrations of her vocal cords resonating directly through the bones, tissues, and fluids of her own body. Her voice arrives at the fetal ear from the inside. It is the sound of being held. It is the sound of being part of someone else's body. It is the constant. It is the background. It is, in a real sense, the first sound the baby ever learns and the most familiar acoustic environment of their entire pre-birth life. Dad's voice, by contrast, has no internal pathway. It can only reach the baby from outside through the abdominal wall, the uterine wall, and the amniotic fluid that surrounds the fetus. And here's the part the textbooks almost never explain. Lower frequency sounds, like the deeper tones of most male voices, penetrate human tissue far more efficiently than higher frequency sounds. The amniotic fluid muffles high frequencies. It lets low frequencies pass through almost unchanged. Which means, paradoxically, that Dad's deeper voice often arrives at the fetal ear with surprising clarity. It is the loudest, clearest, most defined signal from the world outside the mother that the baby receives. Mom is the constant. Dad is the signal. And when the fetal brain hears that signal cut through the background of the body, it does what every brain is built to do. It pays attention. And here is the part that doctors will not have time to explain in any prenatal appointment. Dad's voice is one of the very first sounds the baby's brain learns to identify as outside. The first signal that there is a world beyond mom. The first hint that mom is not the universe. The fetal brain spends most of its day immersed in the rhythms of the maternal body, learning her heartbeat and her breath and her constant internal voice. But every time her partner speaks, the brain registers a sound that comes from somewhere else. Somewhere new, somewhere external. And that registration is one of the earliest building blocks of the baby's developing sense of self. Because before any person can have a self, they have to learn that there is a not self. They have to learn that the world is bigger than them. Dad's voice is one of the very first lessons in that lesson. Every time her partner talks to her belly and the baby moves, the baby is not just recognizing a familiar sound. The baby is learning the shape of reality. Mom is the world the baby currently lives in. Dad is the world the baby is about to enter. And the flurry of kicks she felt the moment her partner walked through the door was, in some real and beautiful sense, the sound of her baby noticing the existence of someone other than her, calling back from inside, as if to say, I hear you. I know you are there. I know you are coming for me. The bond that will define so much of her partner's relationship with this child is not waiting to begin at birth. It has already begun in the form of a low, clear voice arriving through fluid and tissue and a tiny brain learning, week by week, that this voice belongs to someone, that this someone is not mom, and that this someone is part of the family that this baby is being born into. Before she takes any of this too far, there is one thing worth knowing because it matters. Not every baby responds visibly to dad's voice. Some babies are quieter responders by temperament, some are deep sleepers in late pregnancy, some are positioned with their ears against the placenta, where external sound is more muffled. The absence of dramatic kicks when her partner speaks is not a sign that something is wrong, and it is absolutely not a sign that the baby is failing to bond. The bonding is happening at the level of brain wiring, not at the level of visible movement, and most of it is invisible to the mother, no matter what she feels from the outside. The thing that does matter is the overall pattern of movement over time. If she ever notices that her baby's general movement has decreased significantly, that there are fewer kicks than usual over consecutive days, or that the rhythm she has come to know feels markedly different, that is worth raising with her provider. A reduction in baseline movement matters. The drama of any one specific reaction does not predict anything. The steady presence of movement over weeks does. Trust the pattern she knows and call when the pattern changes. So the next time she is on the couch in the long evening and her partner walks through the door and her belly comes alive with motion, she should know exactly what is happening. Her baby is not just excited. Her baby is not just hearing a familiar voice. Her baby's brain is doing the most important work a brain ever does in the months before birth. It is learning the difference between inside and outside. It is learning that there is a world. And the voice teaching it that lesson, the voice that arrives clear and deep and unmistakably from somewhere out beyond the warmth of her body, is the voice of the person who has been waiting all these months to meet them. That little flurry of kicks is not a reaction to a stranger. It is one of the most ancient and quietly extraordinary forms of greeting a human being can perform. It is the first hello, called out from a world the baby cannot yet see, and answered from inside a body the baby has not yet left. Two people learning each other before they have ever met, a relationship beginning in low frequencies and amniotic fluid and the patience of a brain that has been listening every evening for the sound of someone coming home. If this video gave you a new way to think about those quiet moments late in pregnancy, take a second to like it and subscribe because we go deep on the moments the medical books skip past. Leave a comment and tell us about the first time your baby reacted to your partner's voice and what it felt like to feel that response from the other side of your own body. Tell us the moment you knew your baby knew dad. Tell us what your partner said when you described it to them later and whether they believed you and whether they began talking to your belly differently after that night. We read every one of these comments because every pregnancy has its own quiet soundtrack and every mother deserves to know what she is really hearing in those long evenings when the house goes quiet and someone she loves walks through the door. Take care of yourself this week. We will see you in the next one.